Hello and welcome to Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm your host, Alfred Edmond Jr. And man, we have a great show because we have a great friend, a great guest, a great co-host. She's very familiar to our family here on Be Lifted Up Radio. But before I jump into that, let's talk about what we're going to be talking about. And the question we're going to be asking is, what is soul care? What does it mean to care for your soul? And we're going to talk about the scripture, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, Romans 12:2. Listen, our state of mind, our state of existence, our state of awareness, our state of being, it's not about our bodies. In a way, it's not even about our brains. It's about our souls. It's about the thing, the person, the identity we are on the inside. So, when we talk about abundant life, yeah, we measure those things by worldly things like money and possessions, but we know that true wealth, true abundance is a soul conversation. So today we're going to talk about what is soul care. We talk a lot about caring for your body, caring for your mind. There's all kinds of care, self-care, but soul care is something that I think we don't talk about enough, whether we're in the church or outside the church. So today, we're going to be addressing that question in a world that desperately needs to have that conversation. Sit tight. We'll be right back. This is Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. Hello and welcome to Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm your host, Alfred Edmond Jr. Listen, remember, you can catch this show on mochapodcastnetwork.com, IG, Facebook, X, BeLiftedUpRadio.com. I'm giving you this information because you want to be ready because we have a great topic today and a great special guest and you don't want to miss this. Listen, we're going to be talking about soul care. And what is soul care? What does that mean to care for your soul? Again, we get a lot of information, a lot of advice, books. If you're on social media the way I am, plenty of advice about caring for your relationships, caring for your body, in terms of fitness, caring for your health. We even are in a great blessing of a mental wellness, mental health revolution. All of those things are important, but they don't always address the foundation of your identity, which is your soul. Soul care. So our guest, who's not really a guest, she's a friend, she's a family member, she's a sister, she's been a co-host of this show, is probably the best person we can have this conversation with about soul care and what does it mean to us, both within the body of Christ and in terms of what we bring to the whole world, or ministering to the healing of the entire world. Listen, please welcome to the show. Oh, by the way, we're going to, I've known this sister for a minute, but now I've just learned that she's the mother of a whole publishing company. And her latest book, Lessons from the Mourners Bench, is out. And we're going to be talking about that too, because it relates to this conversation. Please welcome to the show, author, speaker, World Civility Ambassador, global humanitarian. I could keep going on and on and on. Just an all-around good sister, Dr. Michelle Boone-Thornton. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Thornton.
Well, hello. How are you? I'm so glad to be here today.
Me too. When I found out you were coming, I'm like, okay, Dr. Michelle is back. Listen,
it's a family affair. It's a family affair today.
It's a family affair. But for those who are new, who may be tuning in for the first time to the show, or just first time they got to meet you on the show, talk to me about your journey and who you are and what you do.
Well, my journey is one that, I can't say it's full circle yet, but, I started out as a social worker, right? With that thing that everybody says, all of my students, because I'm a university professor now, I say, why are you here? They say, I want to help people. Well, it's a little more to it than that. And so through life and through experiences, I have become this world civility ambassador, international humanitarian, all kinds of things. You know, God will reveal stuff to you. All you got to do is take those steps, and He does the rest. And so that's how I'm here today, talking to you a little bit about my journey.
Well, one of the wonderful things about having you on the show, because you have served and been called to serve in so many ways, is that you really are great for having these kind of accessible but deep conversations about some things that I think we tend to gloss over in everyday life. And this idea of care and caring for ourselves. And, there's everything from gyms to spas to coaches to all of which are good things because we need to care about ourselves in every aspect.
Absolutely.
But too often we don't think about soul care, and we certainly don't think about it outside of the context of, do I go to church? Do I shout? Do I sing? Do I feel? And then, but talk to me about how you view soul care as kind of a ongoing aspect of living an abundant life in your day-to-day life, not just in religious or kind of church environments.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the things that we do for self-care are great things because the body is important. But what we do for soul care is inward, it's inside. It's where emotions and faith and identity all meet, right? They come together. And it's the parts that usually get buried. This is not the stuff that people see. It's the outward mask. That's what people see. We polish that up, get rid of the fat, get rid of the wrinkles. But inside is where we really need to start to focus, where we can kind of slow down long enough to kind of listen to what's happening beneath the surface. It's the beneath the surface stuff. That's what soul care is. The stuff we've been told, you don't want to talk about that. Oh, don't mess with Aunt so-and-so. Just leave that stuff alone. Those things. And they deplete us to the point where we're empty and we don't even realize it.
Because it's that whole biblical concept of the earthen vessel and that we are in the earthen vessels. Well, too often, and this is to your point, you were joking before we came on about how you're aging backwards. I'm just trying to hold on. You're aging backwards. But the black don't crack and the melanin ain't telling. And I'm like, it's true, but the other side, I'm going to say to our audience, they've heard me say this before, we're too satisfied with being casket sharp, like laying in the casket and looking great, but we were breaking down from the inside. We were breaking down, of course, our physical health, our emotional health, our psychological health. And so, yes, it's wonderful that the black don't crack, but it's even better, to your point, that you're also tending to the health of the inside. Because when all is said and done, the vessel is not what's valuable, it's the soul inside the vessel. It's one of the things I love about your work and the things that you do, because it's not just about theoretical ideas, philosophical ideas of wellness and faith and transformation. You apply this, whether it's to your students or preparing leaders, both future and current leaders, to apply that with compassion and integrity and actual delivering worldly results or results in the world. I don't want to call them worldly results, godly results in the world and in people, because we are living in a physical world. Talk to me about how you bridge that gap between an intellectual, philosophical, spiritual discussion to the work you do to help leaders be effective in their day-to-day lives.
It's really, well, for me, it's easy because I work for a Christian university, so I get to do it all together. But I see a lot of people outside of that platform that I work with as well. And soul care is really God care, right? Especially as women, we are used to just carrying the pain, picking up the pieces, making stuff work with just a little bit of something, stretching it, making it. And we're just used to that. And so soul care saying, no, I need you to reclaim that peace. because there's a peace within all of us. That peace that, you know, we just don't even know about until we can care for our soul the way it needs to be cared for. It's like we're empty vessels and we're just pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. Oh yeah, we look good on the outside, but on the inside, nothing is being replenished. You know, we tap into people who deplete us, right? We think everybody is our assignment, and sometimes they may be, but maybe just for a season. And so we're dragging these people with us and we're pouring and we're empty. So I tell my students who are signing on to become human services providers, pastoral counselors, you know, all types of, you have to take care of this vessel first before you can do anything with anybody else. This is where you need to start. And that's how it starts.
You know, that's very foundational. Again, it's something that I've had to learn through life experience myself. We know what women tend to do. I also talk about men, and Black men in particular, who have what one of my mentors called Superman complex, but has been broadly known as John Henry complex, particularly with Black men. I'm gonna die with a hammer in my hand. I'm gonna play with this pain. I'm gonna keep it going, and then there's a sudden breakdown. So I want to talk about that because I know you're saying in a way it's easy because you're a professor in counseling ministries at Regent University. It's a Christian university. So you're kind of doing what the mission of the university is for. It's easier than doing it in a secular academic environment. But I do want to address how even those who are leading and serving in the church can neglect soul care in ways that you don't think they would. So listen, everybody, sit tight. We're with Dr. Michelle Boone-Thornton. Dr. Michelle, one of my favorites. We're talking about soul care, and we're also going to talk about her new book, Lessons from the Mourners Bench, which I know is going to be an education for me because I've heard of Mourners Benches, but I didn't really know what they are. So listen, sit tight. Listen to Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. We will be right back. Hello, and welcome back to Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. We're here talking about soul care with Dr. Michelle Boone-Thornton. And I want to pick up where I left off at the last segment. You know, we have seen, both of us, I know I have many times, and I've been raised in the church since my grandfather was a Baptist minister. So I'm one of those people since I don't know what it's like not to be in church environments during the course of my life. But you see people, whether they're pastors, first ladies, deacons, you can name the different roles that people play in the church. And then there's a breakdown. Sometimes it's a private breakdown. Sometimes it's a very public breakdown. And now in the world of social media, if a pastor or a bishop breaks down, the whole world knows about it. And the main thing people are asking, whether they're believers or non-believers, is how can it happen to her? How can it happen to him? But the truth is, often even leaders in ministry forget the importance of replenishment. They forget that Jesus withdrew and would go and get rest and commune with God and strengthen himself because he was a divine soul, but he was having human experiences during his time on earth. But how often do pastors say, I didn't have anybody to talk to, or first lady said I didn't have anybody to talk to, or I couldn't admit that I was even having a problem because what would they think of me if they knew that I was depressed, or if they knew that I was anxious, or I'm supposed to pray and so again, yes, it's easier for you to address issues like soul care in the context of being a professor in an academic environment that is for faith leaders. But that makes the work even that much more important because these are leaders that often have thousands of people, sometimes tens of thousands of people looking to them, and they almost can't admit that they are empty until it's too late.
Right. And you're absolutely right. That was one of the reasons that I wrote the book, because I'm on this platform as the unmasking guru, right? I should be living life unmasked, authentic, and everything. But when I had this experience, what it showed me was I was still masking, but
Mm.
it wasn't a place that I could get to change. I had to ask the Holy Spirit to take me there. What happens with our leaders in the ministry is we get hung up in this cycle of recidivism where there is compassion satisfaction. You're helping everybody in the church. Everybody's pulling on you. Everybody's touching you at some point. And you want to give and give and give. And then you become fatigued, right? But you still have to give and give and give because you're on this pedestal where that's where you're supposed to be. And so you don't take the time to step back. You're still getting the outer pieces done, the self-care, but the inner pieces, there's nobody there for you. And that's one of the things that I bring to the forefront when I'm preparing students to go into, churches or wherever they're going to be working. You have to do you. This is not I might walk today, I might not walk. No, this is an everyday thing. We deal with all kinds of emotions every day. And when other people are dumping, and that's a bad word to use, that's what happens when people start, I need, can you help me? I'm sick. This person, they're dumping it on you. It has to go somewhere. And then you have your own stuff. So that's what soul care does.
And now I'm going to expand this to the whole audience, whether you're a faith leader or not. There are certain things about self-care, and I don't mean the external stuff like I'm going to go go to a spa, but the internal self-care. That when I thought about it, this is a journey I've been on even during COVID, when I realized everything that was truly good for my soul, I treated as optional. I treat it as, if I have time to do it, I will do it. When I get around to do it, I will do it. Oh, as soon as I get past this day, I'm going to do that. And, I've been on a personal journey of saying, no, those things are not the optional things. So, and again, I look at the example of Jesus. Jesus didn't treat it as optional to get rest. He didn't treat it as optional to spend time in prayer. He didn't treat it as all those things that we're told, yep. If I'm not too busy, I'm going to go to church. If it's not football season, I'm going to go to church. And so I kind of want you to talk about, again, this is beyond just being a faith leader, this idea, and you said it earlier, if you break down, it all breaks down. If you're not replenishing yourself, if you're not, whether you're trying to be there for your spouse, your children, your community, your job, whatever it is, just taking care of the external, because we're very good, especially certain cultures, including Black culture, we're great at looking great. We're great at looking like not what we're going through.
Absolutely.
But as you said, sooner or later, it's going to come out. Talk to me about the importance of dealing with, whether it's current stress, past trauma, generational trauma, relationship trauma, and that big one, that was a big one for me in my personal life, buried emotions that you think don't really matter anymore because that emotion was triggered by something that happened decades ago, and you don't realize how that is seeping through into your behaviors and your relationships and your outlook.
Yeah. Those are all really important points, because what we have to remember is your past does not define you. It refines you, and it could be good or it could be bad. But what happens when the stresses of life, and we have a lot of stresses of life right now, day in and day on, pile on top of that empty vessel, well, you can just imagine it's going to come crashing down. And you talked about prayer. And one of the things we do is, right, people put church on, I'm gonna go this week, that week, or, whatever. We even start with children because, most of my expertise are working with children. We teach our children to say prayers when? At night before they go to bed. Well, God's brought them through the whole day. School bus, home, everything. But we teach them to say their prayers at the end of the day, right? Not thanking God for just watching over me while that was stuff grandmama did. I'm wake up, clothe them around 9 with the activities of my life. We need to all be doing that every day now, right? That full armor every day. And so when we start, we just reframing the way we look at things, right? You'll see how important it is for soul care. And as, ministry leaders, that's one of the things that we have to put first and foremost, because, you have good friends and this, that, and the other, but which one of your friends pour into you internally? Which one of your friends do that? Think about your friends. How many friends come up and say, girl, emotionally, how are you doing? I don't think I've ever had anybody ask me that. I don't know about you, but that's the way we need to reframe it now.
There's no coincidence. It's God working his way in ways that we can't see. But the word at church service, I attend 2 different churches, but one of them was focused on Paul's letter to the Colossians, from a church he had never been to before. Remember, in the second half, he's talking about his friends. Please look out for this person. Please look out for that person. And the pastor who preached it talked about he had the friend that stuck with him through thick and thin. He had the friend that was the one he could count on to tell his, but he had a specific circle of friends that were his favorite ones, not because they were better than anybody else, but they played specific roles. And he used that to talk about the importance of asking God to lead us to those people in our lives. And sometimes they're not just the friends that you randomly become friends with. There's an intentionality driven by the Holy Spirit that says, and I can say I'm blessed. There's a brother named Kerry in Chicago who we met at a mental health event for Black men. And we have a weekly Zoom call. Since then, we've been doing it for 3 years now. And he's like the person that I could be a full-facing Christian brother. And we talk about everything from scripture to what's going on in our lives. And I was like, wow, this is the kind of friend that Paul was talking about in his letter. Yeah. And it's critical. And that goes to my point about it can't be just, I can't wait to get to the altar on Sunday. Now there's a day-to-day, regular life, everyday life brother I can talk to about life. And it feeds my soul every time. We're only supposed to talk for an hour. We always end up going 2.5 because we are feeding each other. We feel so much better afterwards. Listen, I know I can keep going. This is Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. We're here with Dr. Michelle Boone-Thornton. We are going to talk about your new book, Lessons from the Mourners Bench. Listen, we will be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. We're here with the one and only Dr. Michelle Boone-Thornton. Listen, Dr. Michelle, I've been chomping on the bit, waiting to jump into this conversation about your book. And I want to kind of talk about it on 2 levels. The title of the book for everybody is Lessons from the Mourners Bench. In fact, let me give you the full title. I thought I had it in front of me. I'm missing part of it, so I'm gonna let you give it to me, Dr. Boone-Thornton. But Lessons from the Mourners Bench. First of all, while as a person raised in the church and has lived, church life, I've heard of a Mourners Bench. Do I really know what it is? No. So I kind of first want you to talk about that concept, and then of course we want to talk about the book and why you wrote it, who it's for, and how it will bless people.
Well, the Mourners Bench comes out of, and it may be other churches, but my aunt, she was Pentecostal. And I mean, when they praise hard. It was drums and everything before I had even seen that anywhere. Started in the morning, nighttime, we coming out of church. So the thing. Well, they had a Mourners Bench, and when I, spent summers with her, I was very, very young. So they had this Mourners Bench, and what would happen is for those individuals that were like struggling, going through, really like, hit bottom, rock bottom, whatever, they could come to church, and the church would sit them, the deacons and everybody would sit them on the Mourners Bench. On that bench, you would get extra special prayers, and you could just work out your soul salvation, whatever was going on at that point. And the church would pray for you, and you stayed there until you were better, right? Until you got over what was going on, you were doing better, you food, whatever it was that you needed. That's what the Mourners Bench, the people who had did wrong things, the people who were ostracized or whatever in the community could come and sit on that Mourners Bench and learn about God, and learn about love and prayer and all of those things. That's
So,
how I was taught what the
so
Mourners Bench
listen,
was.
before as we transition from that, first of all, I do want to give the full title of the book: Lessons from the Mourner's Bench, a bench, a Bible, and a praying aunt. And here's why it's important for me to do the full title, especially given the context of what you explained, what the Mourner's Bench is. And I'm going to say this. Often what blocks our soul care is not really feeling there's a place that we can even admit what's hurting us. It's not a diss on the church, and it's a challenge that the church has faced since the beginning of the church. Again, a lot of those letters that Paul was writing to these churches was about, listen, this is supposed to be a place where people can get healing. Let's not layer over all kinds of rules and laws that Jesus set us free from, because you want to, we know about the things that can happen when any group of humans can get together and complicate things in a way that's not divine and not godly. But that said, so often people will come to church and they will pray. They may come to the altar, and two things can happen. One, you don't really think you could say what's really troubling you. You can't talk about that thing you used to do that if they knew you think you might be kicked out of the church, or this thing you're still doing that you haven't defeated and you think people would judge you for. The other thing is, and that's what I speak to you about, you stayed on the Mourner's Bench for as long as you needed to, is there is a certain amount of unspoken traditionalism, I'll call it, that says you can't be down there all day. Now, the Pentecostal church, like you said, part of being Pentecostal is that we won't be here until the Lord says we're done.
That's right.
But there are the church traditions where, part of my church history has been in the Methodist church. Well, the base word of Methodist is there was a method. There's like, you do this, you do this, you do this. And while I don't think it's intentional, I think there are times when people feel like, I don't have time to work out my salvation, and I can't really be honest about it. But one of the most powerful parts of soul care is finding a place where you can literally lay your burden down. As ugly as you may think it is, as terrible as you may think it is, first of all, you find out you're the one that the enemy in a way has made you think is more terrible than the people around you. You also find out there are people around you who are redeemed, who are like, you think that's bad? And but this seminal, fundamental ability to find a space to really mourn, because you can't mourn what you won't even admit happens. Mourning is saying, I am in pain. This is what I've lost. This is what I regret. This is what has been done to me that was unfair and unjust. And so many of us, and I'm counting myself, go through our lives carrying this around because we don't feel like we can mourn, that we can't mourn, that it's not fair for us to mourn. And so, I don't want to overtalk you, but just what you said so powerful about what the purpose of the Mourner's Bench, and therefore, I think one of the blessings of your book, which I want you to talk about, is this ability to say, no, you have a right to mourn. You have the right to mourn what you thought you lost because, for example, you were introduced to sex prematurely, what you thought you lost because you were neglected as a child because you had an emotionally overburdened mother, or all of those things that we carry with us, and we think we don't even have the right to mourn, especially if we're successful in that, because I'm in that group. What do you got to complain about?
Yes.
Look, you're Alfred Edmond Jr. and you work for Black Enterprise, and you should just thank God that he got. No, but that doesn't change the fact that there are things that need to be mourned before the healing can begin. So I know I'm over talking. You're the expert. So tell me.
Yes, yes, yes. The Mourners Bench, that and so much more. We probably need some Mourners Bench today in some churches,
Oh,
to give people the freedom to, because like you said, we're burying it. And so this book actually came about from an activity, and I tell my students and everybody I come into contact, always be open to learn and try new things. Just be open your mind, open your heart, that kind of thing. I was at a retreat, and the wonderful Dr. Barbara Peacock was at the retreat, and she had an activity for us, right? And we did this activity, and she says, I want you to go back to the day you were born. I had that same look you had. I'm like, the day I was born? She says, yes. She says, you were there. I'm thinking, yeah, I was there. Your mom was there, the doctors were there, and the Holy Spirit was there. So ask the Holy Spirit to guide you back to that day. So this is where it all started. And I went through that lesson with her, and I was blessed to have a flight that was canceled, and we had to sit in the airport. So that gave me more time. This is the first time I was like, please don't find a flight. Just let us sit here so I can talk a little bit more. And so we talked more about it. And she says, no, you really need to go back into that entire day, because I was born in 1959. So that means my mom was born in a quote unquote, I was born in a Black hospital. She was being treated in a Black hospital. Jim Crow, segregation. Take yourself back to that time, that day. Was it air conditioned? Was it anything like that? I was born in between two stillborn babies. So the trauma of that was there. It just laid on and laid on and laid on to the point where I could understand some things that I couldn't understand my whole life as an adult. Why did this happen? And so the book takes you to that. And there were questions I had, but I never asked. We got questions. We never asked Big Mama. We never asked Uncle who ain't our uncle, all that kind of stuff. We never ask about that. And so this took me back there, and it gave me the freedom once I grew up a little bit and learned that I was sitting on the Mourners Bench, because my aunt would take me to church. She sang in the choir. She wanted me to be able to see her and her see me. So she sat me on the Mourners Bench.
Wow. Listen, I feel like we need 5 more segments. Listen, guys, this is Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm going to pick up on that idea of going back to the first day you were born. We're talking about Dr. Boone-Thornton's new book, Lessons from the Mourners Bench. Sit tight. We will be right back. Welcome back to Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. We're here with our good friend, our sister, Dr. Michelle Boone-Thornton. Listen, Dr. Michelle, I do want to pick up where you left off. You're right. When you said go back to the day you were born, and you saw the look on my face. But then even as you explained it, that look changed to a look of enlightenment. The closest I've ever been to that is once somebody asked me what was my earliest memory. And my earliest memory was I was a baby. I was in a crib. And we're going back to, I was born in 1960, so you and I are in the same boat. Because when I say this to my kids, what's a safety pin? But a safety pin had got loose from my cloth diaper and got lodged into my foot. The pin got lodged in my foot somehow in the crib. And of course, it's painful and I'm screaming. And my mother rushes in, figures out what's going on, takes the pin out of my foot and then holds me to her. And of course, I'm comforted and I fall back asleep. And I remember that like it was yesterday. That's my earliest memory. And I usually don't say this in public, because I used to tell my kids, if this is an imposter, look at the bottom of my foot. I won't tell which foot. Because if you really look closely, even though it's 65 years later, you could still see a tiny, tiny, tiny scar from that. So, but let me say this. What you're saying about this journey and this going back, that's a big part of your book, Lessons from the Mourners Bench. It resonates with me because part of healing is not going back to the day you were born. And my experience was, and particularly since both my parents have passed, so much has been revealed to me since their passing, both from things that were given to me that I never got to see, stories that people didn't want to tell. Out of respect for them, they didn't want to tell, but it was like, but you need to know. And then, like you said, then you look at your life and your parents' life, and in my case, even some of my grandparents' lives, to find out. And you're not looking at them through 2025 eyes. You're looking at it through 1940 eyes. In the case of my grandfather, born in 1910, and then you're saying that trauma also comes through, and we know science has shown that genetically, in addition to behaviorally, and like you said, then you ask yourself, well, why do I feel this way when I don't really seem to have a reason to feel this way? Right. And then you remember, and this goes back to our point about soul care, your soul predates your body.
That right there.
Soul predates your flesh. And part of soul care is recognizing that you were created at the beginning. This is me. I'm not speaking for you. You were created at the beginning of creation. God had you in mind. It's temporal to us because time means something to us.
Yes.
So, the difference between 1920 and 2020 because it's temporal for us. But God's creation was completed when He completed it. And so I'm not trying to get super soulful metaphysical, but this idea of understanding that soul care is about not unearthing and laying down the burdens of your own experiences and traumas, but exploring the journey of your soul. In your case, you talk about from the day you came into this world, and that you are in a position to make some assumptions about what that must have been like. And you may not have a technical memory of being in a bassinet between two stillborn, babies, but you have an adult understanding
Absolutely.
of what that effect would be on you, your parents, So before we go too far, because I don't want people to miss that they need to get this book. We'll obviously finish the conversation. We're not near the end of the segment, but where will people get this book, your other books, follow you on social? Because I don't want people to get to the end of the show. Oh, that show was a great show. This is the homework assignment. I don't host shows where people aren't supposed to take action after the show for Black Enterprise or for the show. So I just want to make sure people know where to get the book and what else that you want them to know or do to continue to benefit from your ministry.
Absolutely. So the book, Lessons from the Mourners Bench, a bench, a Bible, and a praying auntie. You can get it at Amazon. You can also go to my website, drmichelleboone-thornton.com. You can get it there. You can find out where the most recent or upcoming signing and all of that kind of stuff, book signing is going to be. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I show up as the Unmasking Guru on LinkedIn. I try to give a Monday mindset so that you can kind of just get into that soul care atmosphere from the very first thing of the week. And, you can just Google me. I've done some TED Talks. Everything is about soul care. It really is.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so to listen, everybody, order the book. At the very least, order the book. Because when we're talking about this soul care, I think you touched on it earlier, Dr. Michelle, the times are demanding soul care now more than ever. And it's not going to decelerate the complications of the world, the conflict of the world, the injustice of the world, the unfairness of the world. It's going to escalate. It's escalating. It feels like day by day, through technology, through, you could just name the ways it's escalating. And it's going to be more important than ever to really have some intentionality. Not everybody knows I'm into physical fitness. I have an intentionality for caring for my body. I have an intentionality for my mental health. I do have a standing appointment with my therapist every Monday. I have an intentionality, but particularly over the last 10 years, I have really been leaning to this intentionality of the real person. It's not this. It's not what I can see. There's a soul that has to be cared for. And when all of this is gone, the soul is what's left. So with the time we have left, let's talk about some practical things that we need to think about doing on a daily basis, not just when we get a chance, not just when people give us time, but we just make it part of our own daily soul care. What are some of the things that we all should be doing with an intentionality towards soul care?
Well, one of the things that I have my students do a lot, and I do it myself, is at the end of the day, take that time, put some time aside to reflect on the day. Because throughout the day, God is always with us. And he's always speaking to us, whether we're listening or not. But if you think about your day, you can see where he shows up, right? Think about those moments, right? And just kind of meditate on that, and bring your day to a close. Stop taking stuff from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and dragging it all the way through. Bring your day to a close. End your day when the day ends. And then when you start your next day, wake up to God. Just wake up to possibilities. Wake up to new. Don't bring forth the old, the mistakes, because who makes mistakes? It's going to happen. Even when you start walking in your purpose, the enemy knows that you're there and what you're trying to do. And his job is to kill, steal, and destroy. And so he's going to try to stop you. So you need to end that day. Don't bring that pain to the next day. And if there is pain, write it out. I'm a writer. I know these young people are like, no, you get to no, I got to write it down. Write down the emotions that I really struggled with that day. Write them down. They're not going anywhere. I promise you. You try to bury them, they're still there. And then think to yourself, what can I do to get over this feeling, this dark feeling, this depressing feeling? Now, I have a lot of people that tell me, Dr. Boone-Thornton, I just feel so heavy. It's a heaviness. I wake up with the heaviness. I go to bed with the heaviness. End that day with the heaviness, and then start your day intentionally, thinking about your emotions, living in the moment. Stop rushing through life, those type of things. And you have to practice it. It takes time. It just doesn't, okay, I'm going to, lift weights and then I'm going to have muscles tomorrow. No, it doesn't work like that.
Dr. Michelle, as we wrap up, just that first point about slowing down and taking time. So I literally had this experience on Saturday. I'm someone who's a people pleaser, and now I know that I suffer from, I don't anymore, I'm managing it, but I didn't acknowledge that I had trouble managing anxiety. It made me an overperformer, so I was very successful again. Outwardly, I look great, but a big part of it was, what happened if I don't do it? What happened if I don't do it? And one of the most important things about managing that was learning to, instead of moving so fast that I don't even acknowledge the anxiety, stopping, like you said, decompressing, relaxing, so I can feel the anxiety, and then I can make a conscious decision about what to do about it. So Saturday, I woke up, I was feeling, I won't call it anxious, but blah. The old me just would have sat blah all day. But what I was aware enough to say, you know what, you need to do something. And what I did was went for a walk. Just went outside, went for a walk, and came back, and it reset my whole mood. So it wasn't that I wasn't blah, is that if you don't slow down enough and listen to yourself, listen for God, you won't do anything, because you won't even realize You won't acknowledge the feeling to do something about the feeling. So again, everything you say, Dr. Michelle, is so powerful. We are out of time, and I never want to let you go when you're on the show. Thank you so much for being our guest, being our friend, being our family member at Be Lifted Up Radio, Dr. Michelle.
Thank you.
Sit tight, guys. We'll be right back with Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. Hey, I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. This is Be Lifted Up Radio. We just had a wonderful, but not surprising, impressive, but not surprising conversation with our friend, our sister, the one and only Dr. Michelle Boone-Thornton. And we are talking about one of our most important topics on the show, which is soul care. Because when it's all said and done, if you care for everything else, if everything else is wonderful, if you look great, if black don't crack, melanin ain't telling, all those things we tell ourselves when we look in the mirror and say that we're fine, and we tell the world that we're fine, all of that is great, but without soul care, without caring for the real you, the true you, all the other stuff is temporary, and all the other stuff is just not going to carry you through. So I'm so thankful for Dr. Michelle Boone-Thornton. Again, please go out and get her new book, Lessons from the Mourning Bench. And listen, another great show. This is Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. You can catch this episode on repeat, as well as all the other episodes of the show on the Mocha Podcast Network.com. That's podcast plural. Obviously, we're on Instagram, Facebook, X, all the social medias. You want to go to YouTube and subscribe to the Be Lifted Up Radio YouTube channel. Again, you'll be able to catch every show that we do, as well as past shows. We're also on Sirius XM 141 HUR Voices, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. This show is about abundant life, faith, finance, fruitfulness, and purpose. This is your guide to living an abundant life. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we will see you next time.